Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 14 of Trojan Talk on this very cold, blustery Friday morning here in Saco, Maine. Not very sunny Saco, Maine, but so we have a lot of sports to talk about. It's been since before the new year, so we have, again, Zach and Cole here today. We're going to get right into it. We're going to talk about boys basketball first, as the boys basketball team is kind of on a roll right now. They just, on Wednesday night, they had a big win, or Tuesday night, a big win on the road at South Portland, a team that they lost to on the 23rd of December, the game that we broadcasted on TATV. It was a very close game back and forth. But Zach, they got the big win coming back on the road in a hostile environment. What do you think that means for their season coming up?
I think it's great. I think that this is one of those wins that they really wanted to get. And, going into the playoffs, I think the only team that seemed unbeaten up until that point was South Portland. But to get that win was really big. And I think they're gonna keep going with this momentum. They lost to Portland, unfortunately, so they're still behind South Portland. But they got a lot of good games left, and I know we have some broadcasts too. So it'll be fun to watch them play up until the tournament.
Yeah, the Portland game's weird because they were on the road again, and it seems like they just didn't shoot the ball well at all because they ended up with like 35 points or something like that. So, the Expo can be a weird place to play. I mean, it is kind of a much bigger arena because they have the main Celtics play there. So, maybe it's just a tough one for them. But Cole, what have you seen so far this year? The games that we broadcasted, and really this team's on the cusp. Is it a good team? Absolutely, it's one of the best teams in AA South. But is it a state title contender when you have the likes of South Portland out there and some other teams that are doing well?
I think it can be. South Portland was the big measuring stick for TA, and they did it. I mean, they have to be so pumped. That was the game that you circle on your calendar. Those two games, home and away, they dropped the home one, but they go into a hostile environment, as you said, and beat South Portland. Some teams just have a lot of stars. South Portland has a lot of great individuals, but they will never have the team chemistry that TA has. I just think TA did the little things really well against South Portland. 10 offensive rebounds in just the second half. So that just shows you how much they fought. And a couple years ago, they lost twice in the regular season and then went to the Civic Center for the playoffs and beat Sopo. And I just think they gel really well together, their team, and sometimes South Portland, it can be about individuals, but TA just plays really well as a team. They pass well and hit their shots when they need to, and that was the best one of the season by far.
Yeah, it is kind of an underrated rival because in other sports, South Portland they don't really match up in terms of both having good teams. But basketball, again, you go back 5 or 10 years, and South Portland's had some great teams. As you mentioned, they've always, I don't say they've choked a lot, South Portland has, but they really have had some great individual players, but just not enough. What do you think, Zach, for the teams that you've seen, who besides South Portland, is there any other team that really gives you pause in terms of, on a path to a state championship? Let's just talk about AA South for a second because that's the teams we've seen the most. Really, again, as we saw, it's really segmented into two different sections because the bottom 3 or 4 teams are just not good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that there's not a lot of teams at this point for me. I think the only team I can think about is Edward Little. They have I forget his name. I think it's like John Shea or something.
Yeah.
He's really good, and it's one of those teams where it's like it's one guy, but they haven't played him yet. I think they play him at some point later in the regular season. But it's one of those teams where I feel like they lost to them in the state championship. So it was it wasn't a great memory for them, and I'm not sure how they are right now. But looking at how they've played this season, I think Everett is going to be a big matchup for us.
Yeah, Shea, I remember, or I forget his last name to be. I think it's Shea, but either way, I remember that game as seeing him as a sophomore and being like, this is going to be a guy who I'm going to hate in 2 years just because he just did all the dirty work. Like, he was very emotional, and he wasn't the best player on that team, but certainly had a factor in their state championship. Well, who better to talk about the boys basketball team than their charismatic, I don't want to say leader because he's only a junior, but charismatic point guard, Will Davies. So we're going to bring Will here for an interview about the boys basketball team.
We want to welcome in Will Davies to our podcast and answer some questions here. So to start the interview, Will, what have been some of your team successes this season to post such a great record?
Mostly it's practices. When we get into practice, they're willing for guys to show up that don't even get minutes and work really hard and push all the guys who are getting most of the minutes, and that's where the games are won and lost. Yeah.
What is it like for you? I know you played varsity last year, but this year taking a bigger role on the team and helping out so much and contributing not only on the point side, but also just in the total overall game.
It's cool, and I had good leaders to show me how to do it, like Peyton Jones and Dylan Griffin. Last year they really took me under their wing and was like, this is kind of how you have to do it. And So it was cool to be part of that.
Yeah.
It seems like when you get into the lane, your go-to move is the floater. How much do you practice that? Because you're really good at it.
To be honest, I've never really practiced it. I kind of just picked it up, and like it's one of those moves you don't really it's not a practice move because the coaches don't necessarily like it. And against guys like JP who are so tall, you just kind of have to get a shot up quick, and that's kind of where I picked it up.
You guys circle the South Portland game on the calendar every year. How much does it fire you up to finally beat them?
It's cool. It's fun to beat those guys. I play AAU with some of them, so it means a little extra. But it's at the end of the day, it's just a regular season game, and we're just getting ready for the playoffs.
Yeah. And to finish up, are there any things, games, or certain events you're looking forward to for the rest of the season?
The Hoops for Hope one tomorrow.
Yep.
It'll be fun. Hopefully it'll be packed, and it's a charity game, so those are always a little extra fun too.
Yeah.
All right, we want to thank Will for coming in, and good luck tonight in the game against Gorham. It's also Hoops for Hope, and that's what we're going to talk about here in our next segment. First, let's talk about, in general, girls basketball, because that's what Hoops for Hope kind of revolves around. Up and down season so far for the girls that came in. Zach's prediction for a state championship. Had an up and down season, and really when you look at it, there's really been two issues. One is their offense has been very inconsistent, and secondly is COVID has really hit them hard. They've had a lot of people out due to close contacts and being positive, whatever, which all teams have to deal with, but they seem to have been hit more than others. And so I think tonight, talking to Coach Marston, is the first time all year they're going to have their full complement of players. Mm-hmm. So just in general, what have you seen so far from girls basketball? And do you think, I guess we'll start with Zach, do you really think they're still a state championship contender?
I'm going to have to say no. I think that it's not only – you're right, you said with COVID and a lot of their star players like Emily Coleman, Hannah Cook, Sue Lukowski was out for a game. They couldn't really play. And I think that when those players aren't in, they aren't winning games. And it's even harder to say that even when they are in, I can't, I would say – commit to the fact that they are going to win. Unfortunately, Sulikowski has had 25-point games, but she's also had 3 and 0-point games. She just is really inconsistent in that scoring, and when you sort of stop her and you stop the 3-point shooting, or they aren't shooting well, they can't really score. And that's been their issue so far. And you look at that first Gorham game, lost by a ton of points, and I know they were missing a lot of players. So this is going to be a big one for them. I think that a lot of these players take the motivation of Hoops for Hope and kind of push it forward and try to have the best game they can. And I know that the Hoops for Hope game is always fun, so I know everyone's going to be fired up. But it's going to be a big one. The record that they have right now, they need to just continue to win to get into a good spot. So it's going to be a big one for them.
Yeah, it definitely seems – they're still in the upper echelon, but when you look at a team like Scarborough, who actually beat Gorham earlier this week, which is kind of a big upset, considering Gorham was up like 11-0 after one quarter and like 18-3 in that game, and somehow Scarborough came back. But talking to Coach Marston again, Gorham is a lot about three-point shooting as well, and as you see in all levels of basketball, if you're a three-point shooting team, you don't make them, you're in trouble. Mm-hmm. So Cole, any extra thoughts on there, like what you've seen, or any players you think are looking to step up, I guess, and they're gonna have a good record at the end of the year, but to make it run in the playoffs?
Well, of course they started off hot. They won their first 5 games, but now they've only won 2 of their last 5. They lost 3 in a row there. But what a great opportunity to get your season back on track against the number 1 team in Class AA South. I know Gorham blew them out first, but they weren't fully healthy, and all their players weren't there, and we think that tonight that will be the case. So it's going to be a really good game, and they have the shooters and the playmakers to knock off Gorham, and I think they can get their season back on track. They're just going to have to fight, and it'll be a really big upset if they win. Yeah,
one big thing, obviously, well, it's going to be a big crowd. That's one guarantee, because it's Hoops for Hope. Let's talk about Hoops for Hope. Now, I think this is their 6th year doing it. So basically, again, if you don't know, Hoops for Hope is a cancer fundraiser where a portion of the proceeds of the tickets, plus they do a ton of fundraising. They sell raffle tickets, they sell merchandise, they do a lot of stuff at the game itself. And just want to get your guys' thoughts on what Hoops for Hope has meant to you as a student, as you gone, or maybe even before you were a high school student, and what do you know about it, and why is it such a big game?
I think it's such a big game because all of the players and coaches and the people involved really close to the TA community take it really seriously. I think really in the last few years I've learned more about like how much money they raise. They raise a ton of money and they do so much. And it's not just like an obligation. It's something that they love to do and they like to do it every year. And I think it's really awesome that we get to have a game this year where our fans can come. And I know everyone's going to be excited. And I know it's a quadruple header. And so it's going to be a big fun-packed night. I hope both teams get a win. I think that's something that will push both these teams forward with the rest of the season.
Yeah, Cole.
I mean, I think the boys are probably fired up to finally get a chance to play in the Hoops for Hope game. But, yeah, I mean, the whole community really loves it. It's kind of the game of the year. It's going to be packed. You see everybody around this time wearing Hoops for Hope sweatshirts. I know I have mine. And it's just a really, really fun night.
Yeah, it's interesting because this year the girls basketball team doesn't really have a JV team. They've had so many issues with participation, but also COVID and stuff that most games they've been playing haven't had JV. So it kind of worked out where you can now have 4 games, like I said, a quadruple header. So hopefully Gary Stevens will have everything running on time tonight. So there will be a little ceremony before the girls game at 6:30, which we'll have on TATV. We're broadcasting both the varsity boys and girls and then boys games as well. It'll be a late night here, but it'll be a good thing. So if you want more information before tonight, you can donate at any time. Even though the raffle tickets, unless you're in person tonight, you can't buy any raffle tickets. And same with the merchandise. If you want to just donate, you can go to hoopsforhopemaine.com. So check out our broadcast tonight if you can't make it there. So good luck then to the girls basketball team and boys tonight. And hopefully, again, as we say many times in the broadcast tonight, the biggest part of tonight, win or lose, is about raising a lot of money on that. Okay, so just talking another sports update. Boys hockey, again, big game against St. Dom's the other night. They got the win 4-3. Not as easy as everyone thought. Going into that game, but St. Dom's had, 1 win going into that game?
0 wins.
0 wins. So they're winless, which is weird because they're a perennial power. I mean, they've had a ton of great games in the past. So what happened, Zach? I mean, you broadcasted that game.
I'm not sure. I think the one thing that me and Mr. Pulsifer talked about in that game was it was more of a trap game for Thorn Academy. Like, this team's not that great, but they've got nothing to lose. They're gonna play as hard as they can. And TA took an early 3-0 lead, and it ended up turning out they scored a couple goals. And they've got a guy, Arvid Anderson, who I don't even think should be playing for St. Dom's. He's like 6'3". He's faster than everybody else, and he scored a couple goals. But it was a good game. I think TA played right up until the end. Gage Tarbox Belanger had a bunch of good saves, so it was a good game for TA. I think they have a lot to take out of it, both positive and negative. They struggled a lot with icing. They were just throwing the puck out to try to get it out, and that was an issue for them. And so, at some point you have to say a win is a win. You didn't get, it wasn't a 4-0 blowout like you wanted because St. Dom's has struggled, but TA won, and St. Dom's is still looking for that first win, which is really surprising. I really had I've always heard of St. Dom's and thought they got a really good team. I know they've been to the state championship a lot. I used to go to the state championship. I think a few years in a row they played Biddeford every year,
right.
and they beat Biddeford a couple of times. So I knew it was going to be a good game no matter what, but. They've given TA a run for their money, but other teams they can't, which makes no sense to me. But
yeah, it's interesting. Hockey could be that way. Again, if you don't have a great goalie sometimes, or just one little piece isn't great. Cole, you're a self-proclaimed not big hockey fan, which is fine. I'm not a huge hockey fan either. I was in college because I went to BU, and you have to be a hockey fan at BU because we didn't have football. So talk about the fan experience, because it seems like hockey games, again, it's off campus. It's like a 15-minute drive, whatever. And the game last night, the game on was it Wednesday, started at 8:45, and the game tomorrow night, Saturday night, which we're broadcasting, is at 9 o'clock. Stay awake, please. Well, I'm going to be the one staying awake for that one. So, but it seems like there's a lot of fans going to games. Now, again, when I was in high school way back when, no one went to games. Even though our team was decent, we went to the Biddeford game and maybe Scarborough, and that's it. But, it seems like it's a huge fan section. Why do you think that's happening? Do you think it's the fact that they're good, or just the fact that the fan section through social media or whatever else is able to garner a lot of attention? It's actually
a really fun. I've started to watch some Bruins games because the Bruins are, hockey in general. I think it's really fun to watch, even if you don't understand the sport. Just come to a game, and it's a really good atmosphere. You're so close to the ice, you can sit right along the boards. And the student section seems to get the most rowdy for those games. And I know when they score a goal, they go over and celebrate with the student section. I didn't realize till this year the popularity of going to hockey games, but I went to one. It was a road game at USM, and it was really fun to watch. They got a win there.
Yeah, you've seen one of the games we broadcasted earlier, like Jack Emerson, some guys were going just crazy whenever we scored a goal.
Yeah, that's the thing. They, this is the one thing I see, and unfortunately, it is what it is. But you can talk to the refs, you can yell things, and they're not. Yeah. No one's.
And they hear it.
No one's really going to do anything about it. You can't do that at a basketball game because
everyone can see you.
Yeah,
and
Gary Stevens, or someone will say, "Hey, don't say that, right?
Your mom.
You got to leave."
Yeah.
Yep, my mom. But it's like the people enjoy going and just getting rowdy because it's a different kind of sport. It's something that's a lot more fast paced. So.
Yeah, I can see that because again in college, I had never been to barely any hockey games, but they became really cool because think about hockey and soccer too, as well as it's not like basketball where there's something that something good that happens every 30 seconds to a minute, where it's like, yeah, you cheer, but you kind of have like this kind of general small cheer, but like when you score a goal, you go crazy. I mean, or a big hit or something. So that works. So, but yeah, if you haven't been over a game, check it out. Biddeford Ice Arena tomorrow night, Saturday, 9:00. Who they're playing?
So I originally thought it was Bangor. I think that's what it was on the sheet, but they're playing Falmouth, which is going to be a big matchup because it's the only loss they have this season.
Gotcha.
So.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, as far as other sports go, we have the swim team, we have cheering, we have track. We're going to try to get some of those sports covered here in the next few weeks with people coming in. Some competitions have been postponed and moved back, so hopefully we'll get more of those. And unfortunately, like for swimming, nobody's allowed at those games, not even the parents, which is too bad. That's a UNE rule, unfortunately. But we'll try to get some of those covered as well. All right, speaking of the Bruins, let's talk about the Bruins for a minute because the Patriots are done. We don't really need to talk about them. They stink. They're terrible. They have no chance in the next few years. But let's talk about the Bruins because they're kind of the preeminent team right now. Tuukka Rask, word association.
Too old.
Okay.
So if you listen to the broadcast last night, I had about a 2-minute monologue about why I think Rask is not fit to continue to play. But it's hard right now to be a Bruins fan because we're sitting in this spot where every game we lose is putting us one more spot back from getting into the top 3 in the Atlantic Division. And he didn't play well. He did that 7-1. He gave 5 goals. And I told you guys, I remember I told you, I said that Willie O'Ree ceremony is going to be awesome.
Yes.
Everyone's going to enjoy it. It's going to be a big thing around the NHL. Everyone's going to feel it's like momentous. It's great. And then we're just going to get blown out. Like
we did call that 100%.
He couldn't make a save. And it frustrates me that Bruce Cassidy, the head coach, and John Sweeney, the general manager, they're like, oh, it's okay. It's just one game. I'm like, oh, okay. Well, how many more games are you going to say that until Rask is 1-7 and we aren't in a wild card spot anymore? So, and I'm a big Swayman fan, so it's more of a personal kind of thing that he's
You're
down
offended that he's down in Providence.
But I'll stick with it. We'll probably not win a cup this year, and then in a few years we'll have to rebuild. So it's
at some point you're gonna have to rebuild because you kind of a little bit, but when you get Marchand and Bergeron, all these guys that finally retire.
Yeah, the tougher this season gets, and I think adding Rask back into the picture makes it more of a like a farewell tour. I wouldn't be surprised if if we were to win the cup, which I think is not going to happen. Rask,
everybody retires.
Bergeron, Marchand, even like guys like Craig Smith, who've been in the league with other teams for tons of years, would just say, you know what, this isn't going to continue to work. We just fought our way. We probably played most games. Probably go to Game 7 for playoffs. So, it is what it is.
He's back. No surprise there.
Yep.
Worst kept secret in sports was Tuukka Rask coming back this year.
Yep.
Celtics, up and down season continues. They had a couple big wins. They beat the Bulls, then they lose the other night to the Hornets. What's going on with them? Like we saw this trade the other day, which is basically a salary dump. They get 2 guys that aren't even playing this year because they're injured. What's going on with them? Again, I don't think anybody around here thinks they're going to win a championship this year, but a lot of talk about trading Jaylen Brown, or what do you do? Like, what do you think?
I think when you have 2 dynamic playmakers like that, you can't just let one of them go. You got to build around them. I don't think people are looking at the trade deadline because there's a 500 team. If they get some pieces at the deadline, maybe they can win a playoff series. Don't expect them to blow it up at the deadline. That's not going to happen. They're looking to maybe trade Horford, but I think they're going to end up dealing one of the young guys, maybe like Langford or Peyton Pritchard or somebody like that. And they need a better big man, which is why they're looking to trade Horford. So I don't see them doing anything too crazy, and I still don't think that this team's good enough to win a playoff series.
Yeah, it's true. I mean, right now they're barely in the playoff picture anyway. What about, as we sit right here, I'll go first. Let's give our, we're sitting here on January 21st, our championship prediction. I'm going to go, I'm a little biased because I just saw last night. I'm going to go Jazz.
Wow.
Jazz losing to the Brooklyn Nets.
Okay,
I think Brooklyn gets it together. I don't know.
No.
I don't want that to happen, but I think it happens.
That's my exact pick. I was going to say the same thing.
Right.
I think the Jazz are going to be last year's Phoenix Suns. I think they're primed for a playoff run, and the Nets are just going to grind their way through the postseason. Kevin Durant is the best player in the NBA, and whether or not they have Kyrie, I think they can win a championship without Kyrie.
No. I'm going to have to go Golden State and no, not Chicago. Chicago's not good enough for that. I'm going to have to go Golden State and Brooklyn, and I'm going to have to say Golden State wins.
I mean, that'd be a killer series.
I know right now Steph Curry's not playing like he used to because Clay's back, whatever. But when he needs to hit a shot, he will hit a shot. And I think like that's just going to work through the playoffs with them.
Yeah. What I'm going to do today, though, I'm declaring the Lakers are done. And I've always been like, Lakers are going to go through. They're going to, like, when they'll turn it on. I just don't think LeBron is it's good enough anymore. Like, he's still great, but I don't think he has that in him to go. And I don't trust Anthony Davis to stay healthy either.
Yeah, that's the issue. I think that Russell Westbrook wants to stay in LA.
Bench the other day.
Yeah, and AD is not going to end up playing healthy for the rest of his career. I think that's just the issue. But
it's gonna be him. Yeah,
it's unfortunate. I like LeBron, not like on like he's my favorite player, but like he's just. I like that he's really old and still playing at a
he's younger than me. Okay, let's be careful. Really, he's really old in basketball years.
Yeah,
okay?
You're really old in basketball.
Okay, thank you. Yeah.
But I just want to add one thing to the Celtics. I actually believe that they're going to blow it up. I think they're going to trade Al Horford and Jaylen Brown for Karl Anthony Towns.
I'd be for that, by the way.
I don't think you need two players who do pretty much the same thing. It's just. It's the same thing with like Russell Westbrook and LeBron James. They both do the same thing. They drive to the net. They get dunks. They not that great at 3-point shooters. Them both trying to do it at the same time doesn't get them any wins.
I think when you hear the debates about Brown versus Tatum, whatever, it just seems so obvious that Brown is the one that's more expendable just because he has some bad. With Tatum, it's more about with a killer instinct.
Yep.
Like some nights he doesn't seem to care that much. But with Brown, it's like there's sometimes he just doesn't pass the ball, and it affects everybody else too.
Yep.
Whereas Tatum usually goes out, he'll pass the ball, he'll just have a bad shooting night like he did the other night. But we'll see. I mean, I would love Karl Anthony Towns. I've been a big fan of his, and just getting an actual dynamic big man. Not saying you got to go get Anthony Davis, but there are other guys out there that can.
Yeah.
I always wanted. Who's the guy from played for Detroit for a while?
Jeremy Grant?
No, before that, a couple years. I forget his name.
Oh, Andre Drummond.
Yeah, Drummond. I thought he would have been a perfect
He's
Celtic.
now like a low-tier bench player for the Lakers or something.
I know. I thought he would be, back when he was a prime 5-6 years ago, I'm like, that could be a guy to grow up with. But all right, moving on from the sports world as we're wrapping up here. It's really the doldrums of winter. It's been a cold month, not a ton of snow, but very cold. I want you to rank in order the three best and worst things about winter in terms of which one do you hate the most, okay?
Okay.
We have the snow, the cold, and the darkness, okay? So you tell me number one would be your least favorite part of winter, and then your second favorite least and third favorite least. So snow, cold, and darkness. I'll go first. I would say my least favorite thing is the darkness. Mm-hmm. Okay, now it's getting a little bit better now. It's almost dark at 5 o'clock, but no, I just hate that fact. And then the second would definitely be the cold, and the third is the snow. Now, I hate snow blowing and cleaning that up, but the cold is not, especially when it gets to be this kind of cold. And we're not talking 35, 40 degrees. We're talking, I wake up and it's -5 wind chill.
Yeah.
That's just doesn't feel great.
I'm going to have to go cold as my least favorite because I really hate, as you said, waking up every morning and it just being the same temperature and going, I really wish like I could wake up today and not have to clean the ice off and the freezing ice off my car.
Right.
And second has to be darkness. It doesn't play a factor for me. It's hard when it gets dark earlier. I think right when you start to get into winter and it starts to change, you start to go, wow, it feels like 9 or 10 p.m. It's only 6, but now I'm just used to it. And snow is the first because I love snow.
Snow days.
It gives us snow days, yeah. So there's nothing really bad about snow.
See, I'm not a skier, so snow doesn't do anything for me. I don't know why I didn't rank it number one bad, but anyway. All right, let's hear it.
I mean, I don't mind snow. It's just there, and I ski, so that's good too. So I definitely would not put snow as my least favorite. That's probably the best out of the three. I agree that darkness is the worst. It just, I think people are generally in a worse mood during winter, and that is mainly what contributes to it. If it's light out when you wake up in the morning, it puts you in a lot better mood. And the cold, I mean, it's bad, but I would say darkness.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Christmas time, whatever. It's like you want it to be dark because the Christmas lights are out, whatever. But when it gets to January, and again, thankfully, it's getting a little bit lighter out, but not great. Well, we only have like 4 more months of it, and then we'll back because the most overrated month in the calendar is March. Everyone thinks, oh, March, it's spring. It's like no, it's not spring. It's still gross, and it can still snow a lot. All right, streaming schedule coming up again. The two coming up this weekend. Well, tonight's the Hoops for Hope. It's a quadruple header, so come on out anytime. But we're live streaming the girls' game at 6:30 and the boys at 8 o'clock. They're playing Gorham, and then Saturday night will be 9 o'clock at the Biddeford Ice Arena against Falmouth, which should be a good game. We'll be excited for that and nice and cold.
I'm guessing we'll be leaving Biddeford Ice Arena at 11:30. That's my guess.
11:30. God. Okay.
It took us the
sleeping in on Sunday.
The game started at 9 last night. I don't think we got out till 10:45 or 11.
Yeah.
So I think it's gonna be a close one.
All right. Anything else, guys, on this Friday? All right. Well, thanks very much for joining us, and we'll see you next week on Trojan Talk.